Imagine leaving some of the world's most prestigious global brands to follow your own creative path and build an impactful community on your own terms. In this episode, our guest, Katrina Logie, shares her remarkable journey from luxury institutions in London to the startup scene in Spain. She breaks down the strategic logic, corporate lessons, and the athlete's mindset that she now uses to build communities for future founders and entrepreneurs. If you're feeling trapped in your current role or looking for a blueprint for change, you cannot afford to miss this conversation. So let's dive in and let's get you to optionality. Today's episode is sponsored by Billy Keels Advisory Services. If you want to learn more about how to make your 99 optional, just go to makeitoptional.com. Once again, that's makeitoptional.com.
Helping you build freedom without losing your edge. This is the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels.
It's not every day that you can learn how to create optionality for your life from a business owner who started her career working for some of the world's most luxurious and strategic and exclusive global brands on the planet. Now, you're probably not going to believe this, especially if you're watching the video version, but with over 25 years of experience across marketing, media, advertising, and live events, which is phenomenal. And I really wanted to tell us more about that. She's a creator, a mentor, an interviewer, and community strategist. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, the creator of Be Athletes, none other than Katrina Logie. Katrina, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Billy. Great to be here.
You know what? This is it's been a long time coming. I'm very excited that you have decided to be here, share your story, so much about you, where you are continuing to help and create for others. And I know that the Going Long family is going to learn so much about you. But I guess I kind of have to ask you a first question and give you an opportunity to share us just a little bit of your greatness. Is that okay if I ask you the first question?
Absolutely, Billy. Far away.
Okie dokie. Well, listen, one of the things that I like to talk about here, and it's one of the things that most people don't really want to talk about. And knowing a little bit about you, then I'm sure you will share your point of view on this. There's this thing that in corporate, things are going to go on forever and ever. I tend to believe, because I've seen it over and over, that every single corporate relationship ends. For one reason or another, it ends. I was just wondering if you could maybe share a little bit about your end of your corporate career and also the catapult into what it is that you're doing now.
Sure. I started out, I think, at an age when, our generation were very much, told that we sort of had to get a job to make ends meet. And in those days, of course, we all have to make money, but it was very limited in terms of choices. And I actually wanted to be an artist. I started studying fine art. And then back in the day, my father was like, how are you going to make money, being an artist? Which quite rightly, he said that, I said, yeah, you're right. Where do I start? And then I ended up getting my first job working at Christie's. And that kind of led me to sort of wanting to be part of an institution, because it was, for me, learning along the way. It was like going to university, but working. So I learned a lot, sort of for about 10 years, probably, of working for different institutions, whether it was Christie's Fine Art, whether it was Cartier, Bain Company management consultants, for a retail store in London. I enjoyed being part of an institution. And then I would say I'd also worked for the Olympics in London and also in Sydney, because I traveled to Sydney. But when I came back from Sydney, I was offered a job back at Cartier in the marketing department. And I sort of did it for 6 months. And then I realized I had changed as a person. From being away and living in Australia and New Zealand for 2 years. So I thought, no, this doesn't fit me anymore. And that's when I didn't know what I wanted, but I ended up working for the Bain Company for 6 years after that. And that was a great learning from, being from the outside looking in to companies. And I was working in the marketing department as well there. But I got a lot of insight into sort of being like a sort of understanding how companies work, basically, and the problems they go through. But having worked for Bain for 6 years, I then decided I wanted to do something more creative. So I've always switched from creative to business. I've always led sort of parallel sort of lives with that. And I decided to go and work for a startup with 2 guys who had worked at Bain Company, who were consultants. And they came about with a new concept about eating healthily and eating superfoods on the go, rather than eating McDonald's on the go, working long hours as a consultant. So I did that for 2 years, and I learned, again, a lot. So, for me, it's always been about, the learning journey in different aspects. And not, back in our parents' day, it was very much have a job and stick with that job, or have a job and get married and have children. It was very traditional. And nowadays, when I look back, I've definitely had a journey of learning in different industries. And I decided after a while that having gone to work for a startup, I then sort of enjoyed the journey of sort of being on the ground and having to sort of pivot. And not being sort of having to answer to the sort of several hierarchies to get answers. And I kind of got fed up with that kind of environment. So that was how I sort of went on to my journey, being a sort of independent and moving to Spain. And I kind of also I have worked in events. I've worked at conferences, but today I'm focused more on building this athlete's mindset for entrepreneurs, because I see a lot of parallels. I enjoy being surrounded by athletes. I have somebody in my family who is married to an athlete, almost married, and I've seen the impact that she's had on him. So, and I also very much enjoy mentoring startups. It's something that kind of comes naturally. So, I look at somebody presenting their idea and I go, okay, you need to change this, do this or whatever. That's kind of what I enjoy doing. Yeah. Being from the outside in.
Yeah. No. And so there's so much that we can unpack. Right. And I think at the end of the day, it's what I really want the Going Long family to take away from what you've just shared is, right, there's the beginning of the journey, which is looking for this institutional security, and then recognizing as you go on your own path and you start to recognize the things that you like, the things that you don't like. And also, we all go through change in life, and we will recognize, I've lived over in Europe now for 25 years. I know one of the biggest change moments in my life was when I moved here in 2001. And so to recognize that these patterns can happen, it happened for you and I, and or you and me, I can't even remember how you say it, but just the person that's listening or watching, recognizing that, hey, you're not alone, because this also happens for others who have gone the path ahead of you. And
I just want to add to that
sure.
When you working in sort of I work as a consultant a lot, and working as an independent, you naturally need your community. I certainly do. I think everybody does, but you've got to surround yourself with people where you have to have that sense of belonging. And you can sort of like literally, if you're not alone with your ideas and you're not driving yourself crazy, sort of working for yourself, but it's very important to have a community that you can talk to about struggles you may go through, or challenges, and also ideas. So that is important.
Well, and I appreciate you sharing that. We're definitely going to pull on the thread of you as a community strategist. I know it's one of the things that you are very skilled at, and so we're going to come back to that. But you talked about a couple of brands, right? And you talked about Christie's, and you talked about Cartier, and you talked about Bain. And so when people hear these types of global brands, right, extremely strategic, extremely luxurious, I know that there can be, and you talked about outside in perspective. I was in the enterprise software space for a really long time. And so there can be this tendency, maybe from others from the outside, at least I experienced it. And I'd love for you to talk to that. But as you decided that you wanted to leave those types of well-known brands behind and go after your own thing, did you ever find a moment where those that were around you were maybe the word is like they were concerned for you because you decided, wow, most people work their entire lives to get to these really large brands, and you made a conscious decision to say, hey, look, I want to do something on my own. I'm just curious if that happened for you in your life, the maybe concern from those that really care about you, that you were going to be doing something different.
Yeah, I think, my parents were sort of always questioning my choices, because they sort of had in mind that I was going to follow this, traditional trajectory. And I decided that I wasn't going to follow that traditional trajectory because that wasn't me. But so they never really understood why I sort of flipped into different industries, because they expected me to be in a sort of secure, job for a certain amount of time, a secure. I think everything, they wanted security for me, which I understand, and I mean, we all sort of crave it and need it. And obviously our family worried that, that you're making choices which are a little bit risky. But I'm somebody that, I need a bit of sort of to take a sort of a dive into the deep end, to push myself, to jump where I've never been before. Do you know what I mean? And that sort of, once I've done it, I'm fine. But if I don't do it, I'd sort of I'd sit on the edge of comfort.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate you sharing that. And it's just the perspective once again, and to your point, those that are around you, and even if they don't necessarily understand, at the end of the day, what they want is security for you, or want to, in their way, help to keep you safe. And so if you find yourself and you're listening to what Katrina's talking about right now, like, hey, maybe you're feeling these same kinds of things, recognize that those that are around you are doing it 90%, I would say, because they want to keep you safe. It's not that they don't want you to do it. It's just really they're thinking about your safety. It's something that comes up pretty frequently. And it's just a reminder, like, you are not alone if that's what you're feeling or if that's what you're going through. One other thing before we start, because I want us to really talk about this creative side that you have. And we talked about interviewing, and we talked about a number of different things that you've done. But could you draw on one of the most valuable lessons that you did? I mean, you at a high level, you talked about some things, but maybe one thing very concretely that you were able to take away from your corporate life experience that you now see that skill that you either learned or really developed and honed, or that's now serving you today to help your communities, your clients, and those that you are working with?
I think I've learned, having worked from different industries in different environments. I think that's sort of made me look at things from different perspectives in business. And I also think strategy, and I definitely understand that from having worked at Bain Company. Sort of, and also sort of targeting sort of the right people when I'm actually building, or trying to help somebody like a startup, for example, engage with their community. I'm sort of thinking about, okay, what's needed to sort of give them the power of community, in terms of putting content out there to connect with people. Connect with the right audience.
That's such a key. Like, I really see that as two things. But can you talk to us, like, maybe tell us a little bit more, because I find that that's also critical. It's one of the things that so many people overlook, and the fact that you're highlighting it is really talking about the people aspect and really who can help you. And that's as one of the things that you've taken away from corporate that's helping you today. Can you talk to us just about how important that is
in terms of the people?
Yes, the who factor. I like to call it the who factor, because a lot of times people don't talk about it, Katrina, and you're bringing it to the forefront. You recognize how important it is, and just want you to amplify that for the Going Along family.
Well, I mean, I think, as I always say, it's very important to build your network, because your network is your net worth. So you never know where it's going to lead you. And also you never know when, you're going to be able to sort of tell them about your idea, or, perspective, or help somebody else build a business, and go, actually, I know this person who might be useful for you. So it is about connections, and it is about having the right audience in the room, and also the somebody who understands what you're doing and what you're selling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate that about being able to have that perspective, being able to make the connections, and ultimately having the perspective from somebody else. One last thing before we talk about be athletes, because I know this is a really important thing in how you're creating impact today. But there's also this, when you're in your corporate life, there's this whole thing about, and I went to the same school as you did, right? Go out, get good grades, get a good job, and then get in the job and stick around forever. Right? I did follow that path a little bit longer, but that's a whole different thing. You and I can talk about that post conversation. But in corporate life, we're taught there is a right answer and there's a wrong answer. And outside of corporate life, maybe that's not the case. But can you talk to us about what you have learned about getting it right versus testing to get it right?
In relating to,
like, a solution that you're coming up with for a problem that you've recognized, or a challenge that your future clients are having, or you're coming up with the idea, and it's really and it's talking to that person who's really the perfectionist. Maybe in school, there's always a right and a wrong answer, and you only get the right answer by memorizing and going one way, versus how do you actually get to the best solution for your client? Does it happen the first time, or does it usually not happen the first time, and it's more of an iterative process?
I'm always somebody that I need to find solutions. That's how I work, So I'm all about, like, okay, if something doesn't work, let's find a solution. Like, what is the solution? So, I'm always sort of, for me, I'm always researching ideas and sort of ways. Mm. So it sort of comes naturally to talk about it, and, like, what can we do to make this happen? Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't work the first time, then let's try this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a sort of being able to pivot and adapt to a problem. If it doesn't work the first time, then you find another solution.
Yeah. Well, and appreciate you saying that, because it is one of the things that was, for someone who is used to the corporate life and the corporate entity, it's you're focused on, and you don't see all the different work that's happening in the background, and you get a solution and you think, oh, okay, well, that's the last solution. But the reality is to your point, Katrina, when you see that there's a problem, you want to create that solution, and as you're creating, it's usually not the first time that is the ultimate solution, but it's good enough to get the first part of the problem at least started or fixed. And then ultimately you continue to, as you're to your point, it's an iterative process, and you do get to the point of being able to create the solution, but just don't have that perfectionist mentality of saying the solution is going to happen the very first time you do it.
No, exactly. And also, I think, having worked for management consultants, I mean, I saw them trying and, sort of being able to sort of try things and fix things, and do you know what I mean? And sort of learning that it's not just one way.
Yeah. Love that. So, and we've talked about it a couple of times, and I know today there are a number of different ways that you are creating value, and whether that is, as you talked about, interviewing, or I know that, and we don't have enough time to go into it. You've even been in the podcasting space and being able to share your ideas and your education. But really, I know that today you're extremely passionate about this idea of be athletes, and the athlete's mindset, and being able to help those that are in entrepreneurial ventures and being able to get the most out of that. Can you talk to us about the genesis of be athletes? Also, to how are you continuing to have be athletes as a way to add value to entrepreneurs today?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it sort of started as a sort of, like, I noticed, as I mentioned before, the impact of having an athlete close to you, sort of, and being able to learn about their good habits and bringing that into business. And I realized that a lot of startups or founders or leaders, they get swamped with whether it's, when they're actually building their business or running a team or, trying to sort of think clearly. It is about not, being able to sort of learn from the athlete's mindset and keeping to a discipline of being able to create good habits. And whether that's, kind of visualization, goal setting, it's not just about sort of sitting still. It's about having a healthy lifestyle. It's about moving. It's about moving your body. It's not just your mind. And it's about creating an impact, and I think with, for example, startups get very burnt out when they're building business. I've been there. And I realized that, when you're in the sort of building business, it's you kind of get a bit lost in your thought process. So it's about creating good skills, good habits, good discipline, like an athlete, and basically being able to learn from the parallels of the athlete's mindset. So the idea is to impact leaders, founders, and communities, and bringing in athletes to mentor and coach leaders and who have actually, transitioned from being an athlete to an entrepreneur, and talking about their sort of discipline and their skill sets and what their daily habits are to be successful in business. So what I want to do, I've already done some sort of events around it, but now I'm building the program, 6 to 12 week program, where we can sort of bring this into communities around startups, around teams, around leaders, and they can learn from the athlete's mindset.
Love that. And also too, as the Go Along family, as you're listening to the story that Katrina's telling about being able to recognize with biathletes, first of all, recognizing that it's not just about making money, it's about how do you have a life that is more well-rounded, recognizing that it's about health, recognizing it's about relationships, and also taking the rigor of the athlete who is very measured, very calculated, thinking about not just physical, but also mental, and being able to then translate that into the entrepreneur, the founder's mindset, and doing that in a community base where you have the consistent support and leadership that goes with the support. I think it's a great idea. And also you're talking about events, things that you've done in the past. And this is what I really want the part of the story that I want the Go Along family to understand is these things have been happening your entire career, Katrina. And now it's almost like they're continuing to come together for you to provide solutions for those that are in front of you, especially for the ideas and the thoughts that you're passionate about. So and the causes, I should say, that you're passionate about, which is great.
Yeah. Well, I think, you've got to, as I keep coming back to, but I think it's very important to surround yourself with the right people. I think athletes are pretty good examples.
Yeah.
And actually, funny enough, I think it was about 10 years ago, I was working for a company, it was a sports company. And I sort of got, you sort of get the bug when you're sort of doing sports, and because you feel so good, and I actually had the idea to set up a business called My People Active. So, but, at the time, I didn't really have the right tools for myself to build it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am again, sort of back to that 10 years later and going, well, here I am again trying to do this again. Do you know what I mean? So there's got to be something in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
In my conscious mind.
For sure.
But it's like saying, okay, well, you've done it. You've tried it once. And now you're doing it again in a different format. Yeah, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, well, it comes back to what we were just talking about. It is the iterative process, and being able to, sometimes it happens back to back, and then sometimes it happens over a period of time that is distance, that some would say. So, well, listen, I need to, I don't need to, but I want to ask you a question, because it's something that I learned not long ago, before we get ready to wrap things up, because I also want people to be able to understand how can they get in touch with you. But one of the things that I realized in having gone through, I would say, a very traditional kind of education early on was, you do all the things and everything's supposed to work out. And for most of my life, the things that I went after, they always worked out. Well, and there was a moment not long ago in my life where things didn't go according to plan. The things that were going on in personal life changed drastically. The things that were going on in professional life also changed drastically. But being the optimistic and always curious person, I realized that something that happened for me at that moment in life, and I'm always curious from the guest perspective if you've had something similar, and more importantly, at the end of the question, you'll understand. But what I realized, Katrina, is that when things are going really well, we tend to not pay much attention because things are going really well. Like it's just where you're riding the wave and you're not paying attention. And at the same time, when things are not going according to plan, like you're at the bottom of the trough, it can seem like it's going on forever and ever and ever and ever. But the reality is they're both just moments. It just depends on how you're focusing your energy, focusing your attention. And then the moment where I would say I was at a trough, I realized that friends and family, they were pouring into me, they were loving me, they were giving me all the attention, but nothing really changed until I looked myself in the mirror and I said, Billy, and I said something to myself, like, this is the thing that needed to change. But it was me talking to myself that made the change start to happen. And so I want you to imagine, Katrina, that you're 3 years into the future, right? Between now and 3 years, a lot of things are going to go really, really well. And Be Athletes is going to continue to expand, and you're going to create new relationships, and you're going to do a lot of really amazing things. But there's also going to be these moments when you're in the trough, and there are going to be people that are there to support you. But more importantly, I would love to know, what is the one thing that you know that you're going to look back and you're going to go, you know what, Katrina, I'm so glad that you told me this thing, because it's exactly what I needed to get out of the trough. What's that one message that you need to send to yourself so you can start going from the bottom to start moving up in the right direction?
When you need to get out of the trough.
Yes.
Well, I mean, yeah, because I think it's changing your habits. And, we sometimes have good days and sometimes we have bad days when we're working for ourselves, because we are working, talking to ourselves, and like I said, it's very important to surround yourself with people that you could talk to, sort of thing. So I would say it's a combination of community, having people to talk to get you out of your head. And I also find that sport gets me out of my head. And for me, every time I need to change my chip, get myself out of something, movement, people, moving my mind, moving my body to get myself out of my head, and to come with a new perspective, and being surrounded by people and having different conversations. And that also gets me out of my head.
Fantastic. So once again, focusing on the community, and then also being able to focus on both physical and mental, and be able to ultimately keep moving, keep motion, and not get stuck, not get stagnant, and get out of your head. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. And these conversations, for me, they literally fly by, and I can't even believe it. I'm thinking to myself, wow, we're already over. And I'm thinking about the beginning of the conversation, and you're talking to us about, how'd you get started at Christie's, or you're then at Cartier, and then you're also at Bain, and then you talk to us about following your own path and realizing that, hey, it was time to not just work the London Olympics, also the Sydney Olympics, and having an opportunity to travel. But on that travel, something changed. Something you realized, hey, listen, I've been following this path, but now it's time for me to be able to follow my own path. There are other things that you are also really passionate about. Of course, you took a lot of the different strategy and recognizing marketing and recognizing working with and through teams or something that was really important for you. At the same time, you also recognize that there was more than just that. It was about being able to be aligned from your mental, from your physical, and taking a lot of those different ideas that you saw from athletes. And today, the thing that you really continue to focus on is saying, okay, well, how can we take that? How can we put these in our own 6 to 12 week sprints and really help entrepreneurs to continue to feel better about themselves, to be focused and be surrounded by the right people as we talk about Be Athletes? And I know everybody in the Going Long family, they're saying to me, Billy, just be quiet. Just get to the point and ask her. Just ask her. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you, Katrina, what is the best way for the Going Long family to find out more about you, more about what you have going on with Be Athletes, as well as how we can just generally enter into your world? Talk to us. How can we know more?
Well, you can contact me on either via my website, katrinalogie.com, or email katrina@katrinalogie.com. And follow me. I have actually got a Be Athletes Instagram and also my personal Instagram, Logie Global.
Logie Global. You want to share the IG for Be Athletes?
At Be Athletes.
There you go. And listen, by the way, everybody, Going Long family, when you're like running on the treadmill, or maybe you're swimming, or maybe you're doing something else, don't worry. Don't worry. Katrina's going to give us all the links, and all you have to do is go to the show notes. Just click a link. We'll make it really simple for you to get directly in touch with Katrina. So with that, Katrina, I would like to say on behalf of the entire Going Long family, thank you very, very much for deciding to invest your time with me, with us, and give us just a little bit of your story. Thank you very much.
Billy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, listen, Going Long family, trust that you have enjoyed the conversation with Katrina Logie. You know what? I'll be here preparing for the next conversation. So whatever you're doing, have a lot of fun, and I'll see you soon. Thank you very much.